In my lifetime, there have been many and noticeable changes in Earth's climates. Heat waves and wildfires are growing more and more common in areas already prone to them. Deserts are increasing in size at an ever greater rate. Ice melt is becoming more and more pronounced, and this is especially noticeable to us in Alaska as we see glaciers recede, and places that normally receive thick sea ice are seeing it less and less. The current extinction rate is between 1,000 and 10,000 times the historic average, and because of polar ice cap melt, the sea level is predicted to rise enough to swallow many coastal homes, especially in flat, low-lying areas like Florida. Unless we act now, the effects of climate change and global warming are only going to worsen. This is something that affects every one of us. Fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas are becoming more and more rare, and so more and more expensive, while local renewable energy sources like solar power and wind power are becoming cheaper and cheaper. According to Clean Technica, which is a clean energy nonprofit organization, the cost to set up a residential solar power system has decreased by 60% in the past 2 years. That's like a car that cost $20,000 decreasing to $8,000 in 2 years. So aside from helping to stop environmental destruction, solar and wind power can also be money-saving investments. As I mentioned before, fossil fuels are becoming increasingly rare, which, along with global politics, is driving up the price. Gas has more or less tripled in the past 10 years, but there are more negatives to the use of fossil fuels than just the price. First, they require extremely invasive procedures to extract. Just look at before and after photos of places where they have removed mountaintops in West Virginia or spilled oil in the Gulf of Mexico. And being that many of you are from South Central Alaska, I'm sure you remember what the Exxon Valdez spill did to the livelihoods of people in the Prince William Sound. And even beyond that, the burning of these fossil fuels puts massive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which causes an increased greenhouse effect and so warms the earth. Though it may sound cliche, renewable energy sources like wind and solar power are the future. The wind and sun are not finite resources. This means they will get cheaper and cheaper while the finite resources get more and more expensive. There is no transportation issue, so you don't need to use yet more fossil fuels to transport your fossil fuels. And even more importantly, there is no need for countries to argue and fight about the sun and the wind. Next, there are next to no harmful byproducts from renewable energy sources. They do not release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, they produce no cancer-causing agents, and localized solar and wind power won't make your local water undrinkable, like the recent incidents in West Virginia. Furthermore, this is Alaska, and most people in this state don't want to be dependent on the government or corporations. A residential wind or solar power setup provides independence and energy security. So what's stopping everyone from running out and getting a solar and wind power setup today? Most likely it's the startup cost, which, though it's constantly decreasing, can be substantial. To power an average 3-bedroom home with solar energy, there will probably be an initial cost of $10,000 to $20,000. This is simply the upfront cost, though, and federal tax incentives can bring this cost down by 30%. And although Alaska is not one of them, many states offer additional incentives to those who want to invest in renewable energy setup. The next thing you need to consider is your electric bill. In Alaska, of course, it's difficult to use solar power year-round. But here in Fairbanks, with solar panels, you can avoid electricity payments for 6 to 8 months per year. That will save most people in the area $1,000 per year or more. But in coastal areas, wind power is viable year-round. Kodiak, for example, has wind turbines that supply more than 10% of the island's electricity, and according to the Kodiak Electric Association, have saved the city $3.5 million in diesel fuel costs in the first year alone. In Fairbanks and in many other places, any excess electricity you produce at your home, you can sell back to the local electric company to be used by your neighbors, and better still, an energy source on your property will greatly increase the value of your home. Solar and wind energy are not something that we should be thinking of as things we might like to invest in the future. Oil, natural gas, coal are getting more and more expensive every year, and by investing now, you will save money in the long run, in addition to supporting local energy security. There are many ways you can get involved and help protect the environments of Earth, and more importantly, the wilderness of Alaska. First, you can contact your congressman and ask him to support renewable energy programs. Secondly, you can invest in a solar or wind power setup for your home. It's expensive at first, but it will pay for itself in 10 years. And so after that, it will start making you money. The bottom line is that fossil fuels are getting more and more rare. We just need to understand that there will be a time when these fuels are extremely rare, and the countries that have not invested and developed renewable energy sources will be desperately trying to get them. When this time comes, the people who thought ahead and invested in these energy sources will have the strongest economies and will lead the world. Thanks.